Okay, folks, we are back. I do not have a visual aid because this movie is streaming. I believe it is on HBO Max, and my buddy Steve was gracious enough to let me come over and watch it at his house. This recommendation is from one of my best pals, Jose Gallegos of Modesto, California. This is one of his favorite films of 2023, if not in general. He, I believe, saw this movie twice in theaters and bought an actual copy of the film upon its release. 2023, directed by Sean Durkin, The Iron Claw. 2 hours and 12 minutes. This movie kind of starts off like Martin Scorsese's Raging Bull. The opening sequence is filmed in a beautiful, gritty black and white. And this is a devastatingly sad movie. I basically sat on the couch and cried my eyes out for half the film uncontrollably, much to the chagrin of my buddy Steve, who called me a little girl. But you know what? It's a real life story, and it is a hard story to sit through. And basically, this director, the guy Sean Durkin, he is a Canadian director. He grew up, much like my buddy Jose, with a deep love for professional wrestling. And he had always wanted to do a movie based on the life of the Von Erickson family, this wrestling family. And I don't really know anything about wrestling. I didn't grow up watching WCW or WWF. The Von Erich family is a huge deal in the wrestling world from the 70s and 80s, and even the father was a famous wrestler in the 60s. This is a side note, it's an A24 film, and they always do great things, and they partnered with BBC to make this movie. This film was named one of the top 10 best films of 2023 by the National Board of Review, and they had special exceptions during the SAG-AFTRA writing strike to keep going to finish this movie. So again, the director, he had wanted to make this movie for a long time, and he actually started researching this movie as far back as 2015, and he wrote the film and he wrote the screenplay for it, and he did not include the family in his writing or consult them because he felt like they had already lived through so much pain and hardship, it would just be too much for them to live through another hardship, to have to sit there and kind of advise him to make this movie that's a biopic drama about the lives of their family. So originally there was 5 brothers. One died as a young child, and the dad is kind of like the patriarch that pushes his kids too hard. To me, this was a movie a lot of light being shed on toxic family dynamics and projecting perhaps your failure onto your children, and how heavy-handed parents can destroy their children and wanting to live your life. And I feel like this is common in the sports world a lot. I've been going to my neighbor up the street. Her son plays for our local high school, and he's a talented baseball pitcher. And I've been going to a lot of his home games here in Oakdale. And you see how some of those parents react in the stands. That's reality. How this father treated these kids. And I don't want to spoil it if you don't know what the movie's about, but it just crushes you. I'm getting emotional just thinking about it. That being said, excellent performances. Zac Efron is amazing in this movie. Jeremy Allen White is amazing in this movie. All of the guys that played the brothers, I didn't write all their names down, but you know what? It's just, it's not a movie for everybody. If you really struggle with abuse in your past, perhaps maybe you shouldn't watch this movie. Or depression, maybe you shouldn't watch this movie. But if you are a fan of wrestling and you know the story and you already know the outcome, I think you would enjoy it. And you don't even have to be a fan of wrestling. If I'm not a wrestling guy, and I thought this was a great film. It's just so sad because it deals with, like I said, toxic family dynamics and suicide and parents that are ice cold and do not show a lot of emotion So that being said, let's talk about the technical parts of this film. This movie had a $15.9 million budget, and it was a pretty successful film. Like I said, it was top 10 list for a lot of people for 2023. It went on to gross $45.2 million at the box office in 2023, and then it started streaming in February of this year. And I would like to see the streaming numbers, because I feel like a lot of people are going to watch this movie on the streaming platforms like I did. This movie was shot on location in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, although it's based in the Dallas metro area. They had an old furniture store, and they converted it into a set to represent the famed Sportitarium, which was in Dallas, where the brothers, it was like their home court where they would do a lot of their WCW wrestling events. And what's awesome about this movie, the cinematography and the film stock they used for this movie, as well as period authenticity of the late 70s and early 80s, was superb. They did full-length rounds of wrestling in one take. So there was no edits, there was no splices. I thought that was masterful. Kevin Von Erich, the patriarch of the brothers, he made his first public appearance in 20 years to attend the initial release of this film in Dallas. And it did kind of have Kevin was the big redeeming character, the Zac Efron character. It's just, I don't want to get into it with spoilers, but it's hard. It's a really hard movie. But the acting was great. And I don't really have any more to add. So let's just jump right into our reviews. Because again, I think my review is also reflected in the subject matter. If you have brothers and you have siblings and you have closeness in family and you want to see sibling relationships, this could be a good movie. But again, tread lightly, because of the subject matter of this movie could really trouble a lot of people. And I think the subject matter, maybe it didn't push me over the edge to a 5 out of 5. I'm 4 out of 5. Which is a good score. Anything 4 and 5 in my world is good. Average is 3, one watch. The Iron Claw is definitely a modern classic, and I'm glad that this director, Sean Durkin, told the story of this family and kind of shed light on maybe a lot of other family dynamics that people struggle with and need to see, and maybe they're involved in competitive sports and they have a parent pushing them to the breaking point. It's not worth it. Don't push your kids to the breaking point. Let them live their lives too. Don't project what you wished you could have done onto your kids. Sports should be fun. And I feel like a lot of the situations that happened in this movie were totally unnecessary and would have never even have happened if the patriarch, the father, wouldn't have had such a heavy hand. So this movie has a lot of great life lessons, and it's a very highly regarded movie, like I mentioned. 89% critic score Rotten Tomato, which is high for them. Audience score is even higher, over 1,000 people on Rotten Tomatoes, 94%. IMDb is 7.7 out of 10. 993 people have submitted their review on Google for an average of 4.4 out of 5. So I think it really is one of the best films of 2023. More enjoyable of a watch than the Best Picture winner of 2023, which was Oppenheimer, which was over 3 hours long, and that was also a bleak movie. But this movie, you did fall in love with the characters, and my buddy Steve said, yes, it's a character piece. There's a lot of really good characters in this movie, and they were all acted so well. The lighting, the cinematography, it was great. Period authenticity was pretty good for the most part. Great 70s and 80s classic rock soundtrack. But again, very dark subject matter. If you're wanting a lighthearted film, this is not the film for you. If you like biographies, it's a good movie. You don't even have to be a fan of wrestling. So thank you, Jose, for recommending this movie. I'm sorry I didn't watch it with you, and I'm sorry I'm just getting into watching it this so late. So again, check it out, The Iron Claw, directed by Sean Durkin. Until next time, we'll see you then.